You're tuned to Radio Kidnappers. This is the voice of Hawke's Bay. This is a program called
The Wonderful World of Wardini Books.
It's my pleasure, as always, to have in the studio the wonderful and amazing. You're amazing.
Am I amazing
You're
today?
amazing as
That's
well.
lovely, thank you.
Lou from Wardini Books in Havelock North. How you been going out there? Good?
Yeah, really well, yeah. Lots
Flat out.
going on.
That's good. Selling plenty of books?
Yeah, we are selling some books, which is a good thing, isn't it?
That is a good
booksellers.
thing. Yeah. Is it sort of building? Is it up on last year, or is it the same? Or
It's been really good, I think, since COVID, because we've got the relief of being back out in the community, and yeah, people like to wander in physical places as opposed to stay online the whole time. So that's a good thing.
Yeah, it is a good thing. Do you keep stats? I mean, kids' books big sellers, or is it all adult stuff, or teen stuff, or is it across the board pretty even?
I would say it's across the board. I mean, we could do stats, but I'm not really a stats person.
Nah, who cares? As long as you've got the money coming
I
in.
reckon. As long as I can pay my bills, pay my staff.
That's right.
I'm happy.
Yeah, okay, we've got three fabulous books to look at today, and the first one is called Pablo.
Pablo!
Look at that. What is that? What is Pablo? Is he an egg?
He is currently an egg. So this is the whole story about. It's a counting book. It's by Rascal or Rascal. It's been
Rascal.
translated, but I don't know what language from. Pablo is asleep in this picture.
Yes.
This is the last night he'll be in his shell, Ken. And what happens is, it's morning, and this is possibly my favourite part. For breakfast, Pablo has a small croissant and a hot chocolate. He's gathering his in his egg. He's gathering his strength. Has to come out of his shell because he's too big for it now. And he's a little bit scared, so he starts off with one hole. And there he is, peering through the hole.
Lie.
And then one tiny hole is followed by a second tiny hole. And he looks left and he looks right and he's looking around. And that's how it goes. So we've got one hole, two hole, three holes, and he keeps pecking his way out. But it's extremely philosophical and poetic because he listens to a fly, buzz, to some crows, caw, to the wind, woo. He doesn't want to miss anything. It's the world that's calling him. And he picks a fifth hole. And he's pecking his way out of his egg rather beautifully. Oh, look, he discovers the smell of the soil.
He's very tiny, isn't he?
He's very tiny. He discovers the smell of the soil and the perfume of flowers. And there's one little leg.
Look at that. How lovely is that?
And then you can see two little legs.
He's just about there.
And then a wing pops out and another wing, and off he goes. But isn't it just gorgeous? He keeps a piece of his shell.
Yes.
So it's a counting book, and we do get up to 10, I think. But it's much more than a counting book. It's poetic, it's philosophical, it's bizarre in the way that, you know, if you want children to think left field,
That's
give them a book like this.
Yes, indeed.
Instead of plonking them in front of, I don't even know what the children's programmes are these days.
I was wondering why, and you will know because you're so much more intelligent than I am, why was that book all black except for the last picture?
Why do you think, Ken?
Because it's a birth, I suppose.
Yeah. So you've got the yellow on the cover as well,
Yes.
haven't you? And it is, he's inside and it's dark, so I suppose it's reflecting what he can see too, isn't it?
Yes.
And then as he becomes more into the world, and it's the surprise for the child, I think, of it being black and white, and something's happening, and oh yeah,
There it is. He's
I
a yellow
recognise
like
a
a
fluffy little
chook.
chick
Yeah.
from my other books that have fluffy chicks in.
I knew you'd know.
Yeah. Well, I don't know. That's just what I think might be the case.
Tell us
So that's
about
Gecko Press.
Gecko Press, and available now at Wardini Books in Havelock
It
and
is.
in Napier.
Yes.
Mrs. Chippy the cat.
Pure New Zealand, this one. So it's Susan Brocker and Raymond McGrath has done the illustrations, published by Scholastic. True NZ story. So this is about a cat called Mrs. Chippy, and the cat was given the name Mrs. Chippy because it was the cat of Chippy McNeish, who was the carpenter on board the Shackleton's Endurance when they went to the Antarctic. So they're getting ready to go to the Antarctic, and the cat wants to go, and Chippy says, "Oh, come on then," and off they go, and everyone's saying the cat can't come aboard. The cat goes aboard because it catches a rat, and they're like, "Oh yeah, that might be quite useful."
That's a good idea.
The cat can't sleep in the bunk. The cat sleeps in the bunk with Chippy, and then they start to call the cat Mrs. Chippy because it's like, "Oh, it's like your wife," you know.
Yes.
But Mrs. Chippy thinks I'm actually a tomcat. So it is a boy cat, but they call it Mrs. Chippy. So beautiful illustrations all the way through. So there's Chippy McNeish and Mrs. Chippy. I know you said Mrs. Norris, which was the cat in Harry Potter. And it is just about the journey and how fraught it was, and how there's a great bit where man overboard, because Mrs. Chippy actually is so curious, poking her nose out the portholes, that she goes overboard, and they rescue her. It's not her, it's a him.
To him.
And bring her him back to life. And then the huskies come aboard, and he just sits there teasing them. And the huskies are all like, what is that? What is that? And there's a stowaway on board as well. So it's just a beauty. And then, of course, if you know the tale of Shackleton's endurance, they get stuck in the ice. And then the ship kind of caves in because the ice packs around them, and they lose the ship, and they have to camp out on the ice for all that time. So that wasn't a great time for Mrs. Chippy and the horses and the dogs. There's a great spread of the Antarctic at some point where they've got the seals and the orcas. There we go, and the ship right in the middle, listing and going through the ice. And then it tells you right at the end the true story of the real cat.
There he is. And it was a real cat.
Real cat, yeah. So it was Chippy McNeish's cat, and that's the stowaway that they found on board, whose name was Perce Blackborrow, the stowaway. And then years after Chippy McNeish died, they put a statue of Mrs. Chippy on his grave too.
How
so
nice
they reunited.
Oh, look at that.
Yeah. So I just think it's a really good Kiwi but international story as well, of exploration and bravery, and that bond between animals and humans that is
a bit like Greyfriars Bobby.
It is a bit like Greyfriars Bobby, isn't it? Or absolutely. What's the cat that wanders, Mittens, that wanders around Wellington?
Yes.
There'll be a book about Mittens soon, I think.
And the last book we're going to look at is called Still Life.
That parrot's name is Claude.
It's a real parrot too.
This is a fictional book. This is a novel, so that's the fictional parrot. It's by Sarah Winman, and it is one of the most beautiful novels. So what country does that evoke?
That sort of says to me the jungles of the Amazon, that sort of thing. What does it say to you?
Well, the parrot would, wouldn't she?
Yes.
Or he, it's Claude. But this sort of tiling is Italian.
Oh, right.
So we go to Italy. But what happens is we have Ulysses Temper. What a brilliant
Great name.
Who is a young soldier in the Second World War. He's from London, but he's in Italy. And he meets an older woman, she's probably in her 60s at the time that they meet, called Evelyn Skinner, and she's an art historian. And she had a grand love years before when she was a 21-year-old in Florence. And Florence is the thing that will always bring them back together. So years later, Ulysses has gone back to London. The woman he married before he left has had a child with somebody else by the time he gets back. It's all centred around a pub in which Claude the parrot lives. Claude arrived one day during the Blitz and became quite traumatised by all the bombing, lost all his feathers. They grew back, and he's just this part of the pub, and he says quite erudite things every now and again. And Peg is Ulysses' wife, and it centres around her as well. She's a beautiful singer, she's a drinker, she's a character. And the kid, who they mostly call the kid, but as she gets older we learn that her name is Alice. So it's all these people, how some of them stay in London, some of them end up in Florence, some of them come and visit in Florence, and all these things that happen in between, and Ulysses' connection with Peg, with the kid, who he ends up really bringing up, and it's not his kid.
Yeah, that's right.
And the story of him and Evelyn's paths crossing, diverging, running parallel for a bit, and then crossing again later. And there's a wonderful character called Cressy, who's an old man who communes with nature and has visions. And if he has a vision, then it generally comes true. So there's a lot going on in this book.
Is it plots and subplots? Is it easy to follow?
It's really easy to follow, and it is all about... So it's what happened in the war, it's what happened with the artworks, it's about artists... it's about fortune and misfortune and love, and the way that these relationships are all very unusual, but they work. And it's all quite unconditional, their love for one another, because Ulysses and Peg were married,
yes,
but not married.
Who's it going to appeal to? Is it a love story, or is anyone going to pick it up and say, oh, that was pretty good? Yeah,
it's an everything book. I think it's one of those books that would capture a lot of people, like The Goldfinch did one year by Donna Tartt, or I'm trying to think of another big... It's quite epic. I really felt like I was in Italy when they were in Florence. Have you been there?
Yeah, that's the sign of a good book, isn't it? When you feel like you're there.
Yeah, and you're in the cafe with them drinking the coffee, or later on the grappa and the red wine, and eating the pasta and having those conversations. And they're bizarre, and they fight, and they love each other, and it's just the most wonderful book.
Is it a page turner? Can't put it down? Or?
Absolutely. Yeah. All I wanted to do was just curl up with this book and go to Florence and live with them all in the square. It was beautiful.
Oh, well, there must be a 9.5 out of 10.
It's 10 out of 10.
10 out of 10.
Yeah.
All right, now if we want any of these fabulous books that we've just talked about, where do we get them?
Wardini Books. That would be nice, thank you.
Good on you, Lou. My pleasure as always. Talk to you same time, same place next time.
Cool, thanks, Ken.